The young protagonist walks around her new apartment with a letter by her parents congratulating her for managing to get an apartment all to herself, despite the apartment being small. This portrays what supportive parents the protagonist has and that she has a strong determination to be an independent individual. This is further confirmed by an ad that she took with herself asking for babysitters, and that's what she intends to do to pay her bills until she manages to find a better and more stable job. From now on, I will call the protagonist Susanna, non-canonically. Leaving her apartment for the first day at work as a babysitter, she enters the house being greeted by the parents of the child. The father explains he is going to a work ceremony which he cannot miss in order to get his promotion. They also explain that their child called Rex is an angel, which of course all parents label their little devils as such, saying that they have been employing a reverse psychology technique to make their kid a responsible individual, letting him do whatever he pleases so he can eventually ask for rules. I personally don't know how that will work out. Anyway, the parents leave and Susanna is left all alone with little Rex. Walking around the house, Susanna soon comes across a newspaper with an article about a notorious serial killer called the Ding Dong Ditcher Ripper. The culprit has been caught and found guilty of all murders who happen to be an underage person. Due to the circumstances of the murders, he has been found criminally insane, being sent to the state insane asylum for an indefinite amount of time. Despite the ruling and the conviction, the public refuses to accept that a young man would be capable of such heinous atrocities, with the victims badly tortured before being killed in a grisly manner. The only evidence the authorities seem to have found connecting this underage person to the murders is that the killings took place in the attic of the house, which belonged to the parents of the accused. Susanna, reading in confusion, wonders why the parents have kept such an old newspaper, as the killer was caught many years ago when Susanna was a child. Things start to get creepy when Susanna gets a call from someone laughing dementedly without uttering any words and soon hanging up, which makes Susanna have shivers running down her spine, dismissing the call as a silly prank. Soon, Susanna finds a tattered note behind the painting addressed to the reader, Pa, seemingly father. The person goes on talking about moving to a new place which he hates, not being nearly as good as this house, describing it as a place with locked doors and barred windows with no doorbells to ding or dunk. He goes on explaining he is going to get back home and he hopes that the parents aren't there for their own sake and that they have a son who is his brother whom he can't wait to kill. This reveals the Ding Dong Ditcher Ripper has been in fact the son of the couple Susanna is babysitting for, hence explaining why they had such an old newspaper about the sentencing of the killer. By what seems to be the case, the underage killer seems to be the actual killer despite what the public believed, as he explicitly mentions that he has an obsession with ringing doorbells and that he has homicidal tendencies wanting to kill his own brother. Another note soon reveals that the mother is the second wife to the husband and Rex was already born to his first wife, making his new wife the stepmother to Rex. This woman talks about the first rocky start to her relationship with Rex, but eventually they started becoming friendly, and after all, the relationship she has with Kenneth, the husband, is 1 in a million, and she would do anything to stay with him. However, soon after a month, she describes she has found the darkness within him, more like a sadness that has been created after a specific accident. This darkness soon transforms into something sinister which terrifies the wife, with the rest of the pages being torn. Later on, having the absolute pleasure to speak with the angel Rex truly is, it becomes evident why the author of the letter married to Kenneth described the beginning of her relationship with Rex rocky at best, but soon after they got on better terms. Having some common ground with Rex, of course with threats of physical violence, gaining his respect the only way that she can. A series of knocks multiple times throughout the night start terrifying Susanna, who opens the door to find no one on the other side. Meanwhile, she calls her friend Hillary and Hip G to come and hang out with her in the house that she is babysitting in, maybe in order to kill some time or just not be as terrified. Soon Hillary gets to the house and starts hanging out with Susanna. Listening to the radio, a local reporter reports on the latest news about a riot which broke out in the local mental asylum, which led to many inmates escaping. As it turns out, it is the anniversary of the Ding Dong Ditcher Ripper murders, and the possibility could be that one of the patients could in fact be the person convicted as the killer. Soon later, Hipji also joins the group, hanging out with Susanna and Hillary. After some chit-chat and trying her luck with Hillary, followed by all the knocks, someone rings the doorbell, with Susanna opening the door to encounter Dr. Pleasant, someone who works at the state mental asylum, warning Susanna that the Ding Dong Ditcher Ripper has indeed escaped the asylum, presumably being on his way to this neighborhood, if not already there, posing great danger to anyone living here. He explains that he has directly worked with Ding Dong Ripper and has failed to help him in any way, as he is the reincarnation of evil and all bad, with a big warning that the only way to protect themselves is to kill the Ding Dong Ripper if he ever infiltrates the house. He leaves, but not before instructing Susanna to not open the door for anyone ringing the doorbell tonight. Depending on how well prepared Susanna is, it doesn't take long before the Ding Dong Ripper breaks into the house, menacingly teasing the residents of his presence by drawing a portrait of himself on the wall of the house, enjoying to terrorize the residents. This is soon followed by him going on a killing rampage, killing anyone he finds in the house and eventually bludgeoning Susanna with a hammer. This leads to the bad ending with the news report on the Ding Dong Ditcher Ripper, whose real identity is Vic Matterson, an inmate of the state asylum who broke out in the most recent riot. After a series of murders, it's revealed Susanna managed to survive the attack, being badly mauled and broken, lying unconscious on a hospital bed. The guilt of not being able to protect her friends, being the reason they were murdered for coming to the house, weighs heavily on her as a burden, knowing she couldn't protect any of them, especially Rex, a child whom she had the responsibility of watching over. Susanna never manages to overcome this traumatic night, always afraid, never forgiving herself, living her days as a broken person, mentally and physically, with lifelong injuries. On the other hand, if Susanna for some reason goes on a mental breakdown and kills everyone within the house herself, including the Ding Dong Ripper, when she wants to escape the house, being truly evil herself, Dr. Pleasant appears out of nowhere and shoots her in the face, being disappointed that he wasn't smart enough to see who she truly is. A vile killer just as bad as DDR, if not worse. And of course DDR stands for the Ding Dong Ripper Ditcher. This leads to a failed murder, with the body of Susanna being taken to the morgue, where she awakens, picking up a scalpel and stabbing Dr. Pleasant with it, who was working late night in the morgue, studying the body of the Ding Dong Ripper Ditcher. Despite believing she killed Dr. Pleasant, he proves to be stronger than he appears, calling for help, which leads to many police officers coming to his rescue and subduing Susanna. This leads to Susanna becoming the latest inmate in the state asylum, taking the place of the Ding Dong killer, with Dr. Pleasant becoming obsessively involved with her case, being the new Ding Dong killer that he wants to cure and understand the depth of their psyche. Despite Dr. Pleasant's relentless efforts, Susanna has a sinister voice whispering that she needs to kill and satiate her hunger. This is the bad ending, where Susanna becomes a more sinister killer than the Ding Dong killer, known for the person who killed the Ding Dong killer, including a child and two of her best friends. The other ending involves keeping everyone safe while escaping the killer. In here, Susanna instructs everyone to hide, as she has a bad feeling. As she tries to find a way to prepare herself against the killer, she finds a note left over by Rex, explaining that Vic, the Ding Dong killer, is specifically targeting this house to kill Rex, as he is the older brother who feels being replaced by Rex. Rex explains that he is finding somewhere and he will be safe, instructing Susanna to escape. This leads to the killer breaking in and not finding anyone, with Susanna escaping the house when Dr. Pleasant appears out of nowhere again, shooting DDR and killing him, saving Susanna. He screams sorry before shooting DDR, depicting how he is shooting him with deep sorrow, disappointed that he would die. With police and ambulance soon arriving, with the friends and Rex being traumatized to what happened, they showed their great appreciation to Susanna for thinking ahead and essentially saving their lives. The spoiled and rude Rex even thanks Susanna, thanking her for being there tonight, as without her, he wouldn't probably survive. Talking to Dr. Pleasant, he explains that DDR was his lifetime obsession, trying to go deep into his psyche and understand him better. Disappointed that he had to kill him, but he explains, despite all of that, he couldn't bring himself to allow more innocent lives perish because of his obsession. Dr. Pleasant offers her free sessions to overcome the trauma of the night and what she experienced, which she attends to and takes some medication to ease her stress and paranoia. On one fateful night, she starts hallucinating, seeing the representation of DDR corpse attacking her as if being a walking corpse. This leads to her having sleepless nights, fearing for her life, eventually admitting her hallucinations with Dr. Pleasant, who admits her to the state asylum to watch over her, which she promises to be only temporary until she feels better. As he mentions how he said before, there is cure and she would be cured. Therefore, Susanna's fate stays untold, with her outcome whether being stuck in the asylum or eventually being released, moving on with what she experienced. Now, something that I noticed throughout the game is the strange behavior of Dr. Pleasant, how he specifically came to this house which Susanna was babysitting in, and how he warned Susanna about DDR as if he knew he would be targeting this house. He also explained how he was obsessed with him and the things he found about him which he didn't delve too deep in, explaining, what if Dr. Pleasant intentionally let DDR escape, studying his behaviors further to understand his psyche more? Towards the end, feeling like he can't find a cure for him, or in other words, understand his psyche, he gave up on him, shooting him dead. In both ending 2 and 3, he had met Susanna in the state asylum and personally sees to her and observes her, as if it all was nothing but a careful plot to have a new toy to experiment on and study. In the third ending, he prescribes Susanna specific medication, which could potentially be the source of her hallucinations, leading to her seek further medical aid, with Dr. Pleasant taking the opportunity to admit her as an inmate to run tests on her and feed her more medication to create a new subject to study. Maybe the reason DDR became who he was, an underage serial killer, was all due to Dr. Pleasant giving him hallucinogenic medication, leading to him hearing voices to murder. And that's exactly what he wanted to do since the beginning, to create a serial killer, and if he can find a cure for him, all for him to have his name well known in the medical community. And if we note from the earlier newspaper, public didn't believe this underage person to be the actual killer. So what if Dr. Pleasant was the person who made Vic believe that he is the killer, giving him so much medication, making him believe he is the serial killer? And what if Dr. Pleasant is the Ding Dong Ditcher Ripper himself? This is a wild theory, but a theory nonetheless. Let me know what are your thoughts down in the comments. It's been your host Star, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.